Namaste dear students. I am B.G.Shinde sir and we are discussing chapter number 3 kinetic theory of gases and radiation. Today it is lecture number 9 and it is the topic of the radiation, and the topic is athermanous substances and perfectly black body. In last lecture we have defined three coefficients. First coefficient is coefficient of absorption. It is denoted by A. Then second coefficient is coefficient of reflection. It is denoted by R. And T is the third coefficient. It is a coefficient of transmission. And addition of all these three coefficients is equal to 1. For any substance, A plus R plus T is always equal to 1. Now, what is diathermanous substance? Diathermanous. The substance through which all the heat radiations can pass is called the diathermanous substance. Means the substance for which T equal to 1, A equal to 0, R equal to 0, and through which all the heat radiations can pass is called a diathermanous substance. And diathermal substance is a perfect transmitter of the heat. Means it will transmit all the heat which is incident upon heat. Its example is glass, quartz, hydrogen, oxygen. These are the examples of the diathermanous substance. Then there is a second substance, it is called the athermanous. The substance which is opaque to the heat radiation, which is opaque to the heat energy. That substance is called the athermanous substance. For athermanous substance, value of coefficient of transmission T equal to 0 and addition of A and R is 1. Means there is a absorption, there is reflection of athermanous substance, and there may be less absorption, more reflection, there may be more absorption, less reflection in that substance, and therefore A plus R is equal to 1. So the substance which is opaque to the heat radiation is called the athermanous substance, or you can also say that the substance through which heat radiations cannot pass is called athermanous substance. Its example is water, then wood, then iron, copper. These are the examples of the athermanous substance. So this is meaning of the athermanous substance. Then the substance for which R is equal to 1 and T equal to 0 and A equal to 0. Means there are substances for which coefficient of reflection is maximum and coefficient of absorption and transmission is minimum, or it is 0. Those substances are perfect reflectors. They reflect all the heat which is incident upon it, or it will they reflect maximum quantity of the heat, and it is a perfect reflector. And perfect reflector is a poor absorber, or it is a poor transmitter of the heat. Means thermos flask, we take the example of the thermos flask. There is a silvering inside that thermos flask, because that silver coating reflects all the heat. Means it reflects maximum amount of the heat, and the heat will not be absorbed by the walls of the thermos flask, or heat will not be transmitted by the walls of the thermos flask, and because value of R is equal to 1 for that silver coating of the thermos flask, or it will be maximum. Ideally it may not be equal to 1, but it have maximum value, and transmission is 0 there. So there may be very small absorption. So this is the third type of the substance according to absorption of the heat, reflection of the heat, and transmission of the heat. Then there is another type of the substance which absorb all the quantity of the heat which is incident upon it, and that substance is called perfectly black body. The substance which will absorb all the heat which is incident upon it, that substance is called perfectly black body. म्हणजे ज्या सबस्टन्सवर जेवढी हीट एखाद्या सबस्टन्सवर इन्सिडंट केली आणि सर्व हीट जर त्याच्यामध्ये ॲब्सॉर्ब होत असेल तर तो जो सबस्टन्स असेल त्याला म्हणायचं आहे परफेक्टली ब्लॅक बॉडी. दॅट बॉडी इज कॉल्ड परफेक्टली ब्लॅक बॉडी. फॉर परफेक्टली ब्लॅक बॉडी A equal to 1, R equal to 0 and T equal to 0 means coefficient of absorption is 1, coefficient of reflection 0 and transmission is 0 for perfectly black body. There is no body in the nature which is called the perfectly black body. So ideally A equal to 1, R equal to 0, T equal to 0 for perfectly black body, but there is no body in the nature for which you can say that it is a perfectly black body. But for practical purposes we consider lamp black as a perfectly black body, and also platinum black is considered as a perfectly black body. It absorbs 97% of the heat which is incident upon it, and it will reflect few quantity of the heat, and so it is considered as a perfectly black body for practical purposes. So this is meaning of the perfectly black body. Now let us explain why perfectly black body is a good absorber and also it is a good emitter of the heat. Now let us consider the two identical bodies. Say these are two identical spheres. These two spheres are identical, they are opaque to the heat, means they cannot pass the heat through those bodies, means their T value of T equal to 0. They can only absorb the heat and they can only reflect the heat. So consider two identical bodies of same surface area. Surface area of these two bodies will be same, they are two identical bodies. But one body is a well polished body, it is an ordinary body. This is normal or it is ordinary body. And there is a second body which is a perfectly black body. This is well polished, this is a perfectly black body, and so consider these two bodies. Now suppose we keep these two bodies in the constant temperature enclosure, means take a container of which temperature is constant, and after long time temperature of the container and temperature of these bodies will be constant. Now what is property of the perfectly black body? Property of the perfectly black body is it absorbs more heat. It absorbs more heat and it will reflect less heat. Means it will absorb more heat than the reflection. म्हणजे परफेक्टली ब्लॅक बॉडी काय करेल की जास्त हीट ॲब्सॉर्ब करेल आणि कमी हीट इमिट करेल. Then what is property of the well polished ordinary body? it will not absorb more heat. Since it is polished, it will reflect more heat. Means this body reflect more heat, absorb less heat. This body reflect less heat and absorb more heat. Now, to maintain the temperature of the black body constant, this black body, since black body absorb more quantity of the heat, and to keep the temperature constant, it should emit more heat. Means to make the temperature of the body surrounding constant, the quantity of the heat which is absorbed by the body should be equal to the quantity of heat which is emitted by the body, and therefore the good absorber is also good emitter. So here this point is clear that good absorber is good emitter. Now for this body, for well polished body, it absorbs less amount of heat and it reflects more heat. Since it absorbs less amount of the heat, and to maintain temperature of the body constant, it will emit less amount of the heat, and therefore since it is a poor absorber of the heat, this body absorbs less quantity of the heat, and therefore you say that this is a poor absorber of the heat, and so it is therefore it emits less amount of the heat, and so you can say that the body which is poor absorber is also poor emitter of the heat. So this point is also clear. Now if the body is a poor reflector, now the body continuously when the heat is incident on the body should absorb heat, or it should reflect the heat, and therefore the body which is poor reflector is a good absorber. So the body which is a poor reflector should be a good absorber, because the quantity of heat which is incident on the body, either it will be reflected or absorbed. And if the body is a poor reflector, means if it is a perfectly black body, it is a poor reflector and it is a good absorber. And if the body is well polished body, then it is a poor absorber and good reflector. So good reflector is a poor absorber. So these points are clear here. If the body is a good absorber, it is a poor reflector, and if body is a good reflector, it will be poor absorber. So this point will be clear, and therefore in the thermos flask, inside the thermos flask there is a silvering, there is a silver coating inside the thermos flask, so that it can reflect more, means it will reflect more and it will absorb less. So good reflector is a poor absorber and poor reflector is a good absorber. So this is all about the perfectly black body. This is the explanation of the perfectly black body. There are so many questions on this topic, and those questions I will give in the comment box. You solve all those questions from the comment box. You also write answers in your notebook. Take down the notes from the board in your notebook, do the study, repeat, take the revisions, listen the lecture again and again, and that's all about today's lecture. Thank you very much.